Hi everyone and welcome back. So today I want to talk to you about the lighting setup that I have in place during the winter months. Now, first of all, if we look at my climate plan, which I need to tidy up, get it typed up and printed off and laminated ideally, but anyway, it is what it is. So, like I've explained before in a previous video, but if you're new to this channel, this is a climate plan of a place in Punjab in Pakistan, in the Salt Range hills where geckos live in the wild. Okay. And basically I found this weather data from this random village in that area to use as a guide in order to try and replicate their wild habitat climate in this terrarium. Okay, obviously it's not going to be exact, yeah, we know that, because we're working in a terrarium and not out in the open wild. Okay, so there's certain parameters, but it's good to have a sort of a guideline. Yeah, so gives us a bit of a direction. Right, so we're in January. Temperature in the wild during the day on average is about 21 Celsius, and then on average at night it drops to about 10 degrees with 5 rain days and a humidity of about 41%. Yeah, but like I say, parameters, humidity isn't going to be exact because where I live it's a temperate climate, so it's going to be different, the angle of the sun and everything, because of the latitude and angle on the earth of where Wales is placed compared to where Pakistan is placed. It's not going to be exact. But anyway, cut long story short, how do I use this to influence the lighting setup? Let's use the word photo period, right? So what is photo period? It is the interval in a 24-hour period in which animals and plants or living organisms are exposed to light. Okay, so we need to get this word. I'm going to use this word more now in my videos. Light. Okay, photo period, which is basically the accumulation of emissions of light which interact with living things in order to help them thrive. Yeah, so we know that emissions of light, radiation of light, comes in the wild from the sun. So it travels from the sun to Earth as photons. Okay, photons. So they're the little, if you just imagine little tiny particles from the sun, photons of sunlight coming towards the Earth. Yeah, and then there's different wavelengths of those photons, known as UVA, UVB, UVC, IRA, IRB, IRC. And I think there may be another one, but I can't remember. Okay. Bearing in mind, I'm going to signpost you to a video I watched recently by Roman Muryn, who is a herpetologist and active in the field of reptile lighting. So I will post a link to that video in the description on this video, so you can see, because he explains it much better than I can. But basically, photo period is the interval in a 24-hour period of light that animals and plants are exposed to. Okay, and obviously that photo period fluctuates during the year. In the wild, the photo period isn't set to the same time range in the day and at night. It's not like static as it sometimes is in herpetoculture, yeah? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having a photo period on a static setting where it comes on at the same time in the morning and goes off at the same time in the evening. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because that, you know, the ultimate aim is to keep our reptiles safe. But in the wild, the photo period changes according to the seasons, okay, and the angle of the sun, which emits the radiation, yeah, which affects the physiology, which is the functioning of living things, physiology, how living things function, yeah. So light affects that through radiation. And reptiles, with them being ectothermic, so cold-blooded, they rely on light in order to kind of perform on a daily basis, you know, and this is where UVB and infrared comes into place, okay? So, the photo period that I have set up here, I have a basking bulb there. It's not currently on at the moment because with it being winter time, the photo period of infrared is less intense as, say, in the spring and in the summer, in the peak of summer, yeah? Where the intensity of light is stronger in the summer, whereas in the winter, the intensity of that light is lower because of the lower angle of the sun, the winter sun, yeah? I hope that this makes sense. So I've recently put in a low wattage bulb. It's the new 35 watt bulb by Arcadia. So this light here I'm on about here, this basking light, that comes on and it's controlled by a thermostat, a dimming thermostat, which is just over there, yeah? So you can see on the dimming thermostat that the setting is on the lowest sort of operational setting, temperature-wise, yeah? Compared to what it is in, say, the peak of summer. And the purpose of that is to, so when the temperature of the terrarium falls below a certain temperature, so say it falls below 15 degrees or slightly less, which I think is, yeah, which is what it's set to, then that halogen will dim on, yeah? But even though that is off, there is still a bit of light being provided through these LED lamps and UVB. I'm going to talk about those in a sec, okay? I mean, if we look outside now, it's sort of heading towards dusk now. And what time are we on? It's just gone 3:30. Yeah, it's mid-January, just gone 3:30, and it's sort of heading, you know, it's in another, say, hour and a half, it'll be dark. Yeah. So the sun is not at its strongest. So, like in here, the sun, which is the photo period of light being generated through the provision of lighting equipment, so LEDs, UVB and infrared, it's not at its strongest because we're in winter. So going back to the fluctuation in photoperiod in the wild, as we approach winter, the days get shorter, and then as we approach spring and summer, the days get longer. And this is kind of what's happening in this terrarium. So as we approach winter, the days get shorter, and the temperature also gradually decreases, which causes Mr. Jinx to go into a semi-brumation period. And I'm going to do another video on that, specifically on that. That will be coming out soon. Okay, so bear with me on that. So light plays a key role in the functioning of life in the terrarium. Yeah, light coming from above, and then coming from below we have the soil, which also plays another key role, and then again that's another video in the pipeline. And then so when the two meet in the middle, we have this space of life, I guess, patch of life. Okay, right. So I'm not sure if I've explained that well, but so the thermostat now is on the lower setting. Then as we approach February, if we look at the climate plan again, in Feb the daytime temperature on average is about 24. Okay, so then the thermostat setting on there can go up a little bit. Yeah, and then in March it gets a little bit warmer again, so it can go up again. Yeah, the maximum setting on the thermostat I think is around 34 degrees Celsius, but I don't put it up to that really, because it may lead to overheating. But I usually sometimes put it maybe 32. 30 is the norm, maybe slightly less. Okay, in the peak of summer. But if we're having a dangerously hot heat wave outside, which affects the ambient room temperatures, then obviously I turn the thermostat down again to a manageable temperature. Okay, so it's good to make use of this thermostat. So through the fluctuating day lengths leading into and out of summer and the solstice, the full use of temperature ranges on this thermostat are getting utilised, really. Rather than just have a thermostat with all these different temperature settings set on one setting throughout the whole year, why not mimic the wild-like conditions and make full use of the temperature settings on the thermostat, which influences the radiation of infrared light, which is important for reptiles. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about this lighting here. Now, because we're in winter, again, going back to less intense light, I have put here a piece of, it's like a wooden frame with a piece of acrylic plastic, and I put the lights sitting on top, only for this time of year, so that there's not as much intense light going through. Okay, come March, I will replace this and move the lights around again, and when there's a wider photo period, shall we say. Okay, so here I have my two jungle dawns, so one here and one there, and in the middle I have my UVB. Okay, we can measure the brightness of light through technology. For instance, this lux meter, Okay, so lux is a unit of light measurement, and I'll just take a little reading now of that. So just bear with me, guys. So I'm just going to pop my camera down to my waist and then get a reading. So by holding the lux meter just approximately 30 centimeters from the top of the mesh down towards the ground, that's the reading that I'm getting for brightness, okay? Which is fine for this, yeah? So it's still giving off some brightness there, okay? Now let's have a look at the UVB reading. So this is my solar meter. So if I place my solar meter at approximately the same distance as I did with the lux meter, I'm getting 0.1. And that's still even with the acrylic. Now I've had this UVB tube for, it's got to be 1.5 years now at least. Yeah, same UVB tube, and it's been on every day since then. And it's still giving off ample UVB. So, yeah, that's good. I do have a spare one here as a replacement. So, for when it runs out, okay? Right. Just flicking back to the heat lamp. This is a solar irradiance meter. So it can measure the irradiance of sunlight and light intensity through watts per meter squared. So this is a tool for measuring power density. Yeah, and power density is helpful to work out the quality of light coming from either the sun or an incandescent bulb for use in vivariums. So I'm going to place this just under here as well, the same spot. So we're getting quite a low power density reading from the solar meter. Probably because of the mesh and the acrylic blocking some of the wavelengths of light. When that acrylic is moved, and also when the halogen is on, then there will be an increase in the power density. And the maximum power density that we want to aim for is, say, between 250 and 300 watts per meter squared, which aligns with studies and experiments carried out by Roman Muryn. So whilst we're talking about lighting, do head over to Roman Muryn's YouTube page and for more sort of descriptive info on reptile lighting, and he's been in it for a lot longer than I have, so I'm still fairly new and learning these tricks, so he's more knowledgeable on the subject than I am. There's also Dr Frances Baines as well, who is a reptile lighting guide. Okay, right, so it's all looking good so far. What else have I got here? Okay, so what I want to do, so obviously these lights, they're connected to these digital timers, yeah, which are set to come on at certain times in the morning and evening, in close proximity to the sunrise and sunset times over in their wild habitat. Okay, so in spring and summer and autumn, and even into December, usually this mesh is sort of mostly filled with another additional plant grow light, which I'm going to show you in a sec. Which is also connected to the digital timers. Yeah, so in spring and summer, obviously, when the photo period is brighter, so is the terrarium. It gets brighter, but because we're in winter now, like I've seen before, the photo period is darker. Okay, so that will link to the reason why they brumate, but I'm going to discuss that in my next video, okay, which is specifically on brumation. Now, what are these gadgets here? What's that? What's that? Well, this was kind of like, I thought it was a dehumidifier. I bought it thinking it was a dehumidifier, but it's actually an air purifier. Still has some use. What have I done with the... Here we go. It clears out the air, basically, removes dust, pollen, bacteria, harmful odours and that, and replaces it with oxygen content and healthy ions. And I have noticed, I mean, it's not on all the time, and neither is the dehumidifier, which I'll discuss in a sec. But it does. I've noticed since I mean, I had the two of them on for a 48-hour period just to give it a good bit of a blast, really. And also when I'm cleaning, I leave these terrarium windows open. I mean, Mr. Jinx is well into hibernation now, so there's no chance of him coming out. So I even leave the glass doors open for a little bit, just to let some air in and, you know, air it out. Which I think is important because the air in there can become quite stagnant. So these sort of gadgets help clean the air and also reduce the moisture in the air, which affects humidity. Okay? So that's why the dehumidifier is there. Now, like I was saying before, we can't copy the wild climate exactly, but we can do our best. So, because of where I live on Mother Earth, the humidity levels are much different in North Wales than in northern Pakistan. Okay? So, I'm never going to get the exact humidity. You know, it's just something I have to sort of deal with, but there we go. And humidity ranges, you know, I mean, how do we know from the evidence? Like, this data could have been taken from a rooftop of a building in Nali, and then 100 yards down the road, or say a mile, 5 miles, whatever, you could be in mountains where the humidity is totally different again. So, you know, you can never, we just don't know, really. There's a lot we don't know, but we can do our best to kind of replicate from the evidence that we do have, okay? And I'm just a bit of a freak, obsessed with things. You know, it's a project that I just love doing, and I do have a day job, and I just, you know, I am enjoying that, but this, you know, I just love to come back to. It's just something I love doing,